Hey, you're listening to the Bandwagoners. My name is Andy Cole.
And my name's Justin Boniface, and we're bringing you a little bit of news and notes, and mostly the Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, kind of a big deal. Kind of a big thing happened. We took a couple weeks off, or an extra week off, just because we wanted to let that series finish. And you got the Chicago Blackhawks as your Stanley Cup champions, who did it in epic fashion, which we will be discussing, obviously, thoroughly tonight in a few moments. We want to open the show just with a quick note, a quick trade, a big trade, actually, which is going to severely alter the goaltending landscape this offseason. Jonathan Bernier, highly touted backup goalie for the Los Angeles Kings.
One of the top three up-and-comers in the NHL.
Maybe feel would have had a starting role right now if it wasn't for Quick. By now, I should say, if it wasn't for Quick. Kind of not unlike Schneider on the Canucks a few years ago.
Yeah.
He gets traded to Toronto for Fratton and Scrivens and a pick.
Scrivens went... Oh, yeah, that's right.
Scrivens went as well.
So that's epic. So they kind of made a decision there. Scrivens, I'm a little bit sad. I wanted to see some more development for him. I think he could have been a starting goaltender
Toronto
eventually.
feels like they got shafted. This is the reports out of Toronto. Most of the fan base feels very unhappy about this trade. A lot of them because they really feel that... their starting goalie of the last playoffs, Reimer, was really earned the spot.
Well, you know what? They're really going to be fighting for it this year, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And for Toronto, it's not a terrible move. I mean, you give up Scrivens, who was nothing but consistent when he needed to be.
Fratton could have been terrific.
We don't know what the pick's going to be,
there.
But Bernier could be amazing. Bernier could be one of the best goalies in the NHL.
Could be a franchise starter.
And so
he could totally.
It's a good chance.
Reimer.
It's not like a risky chance. It's a solid chance. So really, if that does work out for Toronto, one of the only pieces missing is goaltending. They'll be ready to go. I mean,
now
their defense is solid.
Yeah.
They got two goalies going to be fighting it out for first spots. So Toronto, don't feel totally shafted. I mean, we'll see what the draft pick turns out to be. But honestly, as a Montreal fan who has to play Toronto like 10 times next season with the new division, that's not going to be great.
Yeah,
he's French Canadian, or at least it sounds French Canadian. He'll love to play. And as we just saw, French Canadian goaltenders win the Stanley Cup. So
they do. A lot of people not even talking about Crawford for Sochi, but now his name is in the mix for sure. A lot of people felt very surprised.
Maybe if they give him a bionic glove, because that was a little bit of a
bit of a weak spot. But a lot of people felt like he should have been the Conn Smythe winner.
I agree with that. Actually, for me, Kane would have been my third pick, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting in Toronto because there are some reports that they might even try and trade Reimer and that now just make Bernier the guy. Just because there's a high probability he will wrestle the starting job away from Reimer.
Give him a season, though. I mean, that's a high-profile city, and what you're going to do in that scenario is alienate him right away. Like, Reimer's gone, and Bernier's like, oh, okay, I'm the starter.
Do what they did for Schneider.
I only played 10 games last year. Like,
do what they did for Schneider.
Let him fight it out for a season.
Test
out the new format for the division or the conferences, and then make a decision.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to be going over the awards. Most of them we'll skip over pretty quickly because they're pretty straightforward, but obviously a few we'll be dissecting in a bit more detail. So I'm just going to go up the list from in no particular order, just based on the NHL website. The William Jennings Trophy, goaltenders allowing the fewest goals, Corey Crawford and Ray Emery. Get that?
Yeah.
This one's good. The Art Ross Trophy winner, Martin St. Louis, with 60 points in 48 games.
Which is amazing. I mean, congratulations to St. Louis. I don't know
how
many players have done it at that age, but that's impressive.
I want to say he's the oldest.
I read
that stat. I'm pretty sure he is the oldest.
You got to give a lot of credit to Steven Stamkos for giving him the opportunity to win that trophy. A talented line
should cut that in half and give Stamkos
half the trophy.
The trophy was cleft in twain. And we got the Maurice Rocket Richard for most goals scored. The winner is Alexander Ovechkin.
And awesome for him.
32 goals.
I was really happy to see that. I mean, he has been judged a lot for his poor seasons over the last couple of years as not being a goal scorer. He had to try out a new position on the wing with a new coach, and he managed to make it work in the second half of the season to actually win. But he still won the scoring title, so that's impressive.
Now all he's got to do is show up in the playoffs. We'll have something there.
Exactly.
Yeah. We got the Bridgestone Messier Leadership Award.
Good God.
I didn't even know what this was until...
This is its third year, I think, or second year.
I guess. Mark Messier actually called the winner and congratulated him, and it was Daniel Alfredson. He didn't sound like he particularly cared too much. Yeah, Alfredson was like, okay, yeah, cool, awesome. But Alfredson wins the Best Captain Award, if that's possible to award such a thing. Bill Masterson Memorial Trophy, Perseverance, Sportsmanship, and Dedication to Hockey.
Crosby was up for this.
Josh Harding won it because of the multiple sclerosis, which, fair enough, right? Yep. I mean, just give it to the guy.
That's ridiculous.
Give it to the guy. King Clancy Memorial Trophy, Leadership and Humanitarian Contribution. You got Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins.
There you go. Probably very vital during the tough times in Boston this year.
He was a huge factor in the Boston Strong Initiative, so well earned and well deserved.
There you go.
NHL Foundation Player Award for commitment, perseverance, and teamwork to enrich the community. another award I didn't know existed until 35 seconds ago. Henrik Zetterberg of the Detroit Red Wings won it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm sure he's ecstatic. The Lady Bang Memorial Trophy winner, sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct.
Patrick Kane.
No, it's actually Martin St. Louis.
What?
Yeah.
He was then a finalist, or
Patrick Kane was a finalist.
What was he was a finalist?
Yeah,
I thought I saw his name. I'm sorry, but even though his name's on the list, I still want to talk about Patrick Kane because this is a guy who was touted as not a sportsmanlike player, not a great guy, with that disorderly drunken conduct in that taxi a few years ago.
Didn't get along well with some of his teammates.
And that, as far as I know, that trophy is voted as by the players.
Yep,
is that not correct?
It is.
So that is amazing for Patrick Kane to be nominated. That's a lot of progress in the last few years in that department.
I think it's growing up, you know? Like,
Yeah,
he's not a
it
kid.
is.
I mean, he's still young, but he's not like a kid anymore.
But he was judged harshly for his actions, even though he was a kid, and like you're in the spotlight. And I think that for his peers to even make him a nomination, not a winner, sorry about that, but a nomination, that's
huge.
awesome for him.
Huge,
That's
yeah.
great for him. So sorry, the winner was
Martin St. Louis.
okay, and that's not surprising.
No,
I
he's
mean.
like a super nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He like hugs players to death.
And he's Canadian, so I mean
yeah.
that automatically gets you an extra few points.
Exactly. Patrick Kane, he thanked his mullet. That had a large contribution.
Nice. Sorry, Patrick Kane. I was going for you on
Yeah,
that.
well, I'm sure he'll call you tomorrow because he was totally listening to the show.
Yeah, right?
General Manager of the Year goes to, surprise, Ray Shero of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah,
for,
we called that. Yeah.
Pretty much getting like 4-star players for next to nothing.
A lot of people were criticizing him because
didn't really work out too well for him.
in the playoffs. But I mean, realistically, they lost to the Stanley Cup finalists of the East, and the trade deadline's over. He did what he could, and they still rocked it.
Shero was not to blame for that debacle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on the players. Shero did everything in his power to make that team a contender.
And Iginla still doesn't have a cup.
Oh, I know, right? Imagine he doesn't win one. Oh, man, I hope he wins one before he retires. Hope it's like a Ray Bourque kind of thing. Ray Bourque kind of thing last year. Whenever that is, I don't know. But, I mean, it'd be nice. I've always liked Iginla. He's such a classy and friendly guy. So great with the media, unlike some people, which we'll get to in a moment.
But he's talking about turning it around.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Jack Adams Award, Coach of the Year. Paul McLean.
Yep.
I don't even know why there were nominees. I mean, it sucks that I know that
Therrien didn't get a nomination,
which sucks. But honestly, he wasn't going to win. So I mean, it was McLean's.
Yeah.
They just should have given it to him.
Fair enough.
Although the Boudreaux thing was a bit strange. Getting the nomination, I gotta say, I would have given that to Therrien. Frank J. Selke Trophy for Best Defensive Forward. This is a big one. I'll go over the nominees from now on because all of the awards now for the remainder are quite big. Frank J. Selke Trophy, you got the nominees Patrice Bergeron, who's won it before, Pavel Datsyuk, who pretty much should have the trophy named after him, and Jonathan Toews. And the winner is Jonathan Toews.
Absolutely awesome representation for Toews. I mean, even through the playoffs, he kept it up too. I know the award is based on the regular season, but he's a checking machine, and it's turning into Pavel Datsyuk-like stuff. All of a sudden, the puck is gone, and you don't even know. And specifically in Game 6 against Charo, when Charo tried to pinch him on the boards. Like that, Toews
made him look silly.
His size won't do anything. He'll just take it away from you.
And it's amazing because as defensively sound as he is, he's still such an offensive threat. Like, I mean, obviously that's what the award is for, really the best two-way player in the game.
Yeah.
And that's what he is. I mean, he's a two-way threat. He's dangerous in every part of the ice at any given moment. And as much as he hates the Canucks, it's hard for me not to love him, just because he's such a terrific player.
I wonder who votes on that Messier trophy, because I mean Alfredson has some adversity, but Jonathan Toews, best captain, that's what I would have said.
Yeah, well, actually, let's scroll down for a second. Was he nominated? He was.
He was nominated.
Along with Dustin Brown, and
they won the Cup last year, and they had a horrible season. What is that?
Dustin Brown got nominated as well as Toews. So yeah,
maybe Messier just nominates people he likes.
Yeah. I think he's cute.
I think I like this one.
So I'll nominate this guy.
Him and Alfredson are in a relationship now?
Implying that Messier is gay, which has been a long-standing rumor, but that's a whole other story. Okay, now we got the Ted Lindsay Award for Most Outstanding Players selected by the NHLPA. This one, in most people's eyes, is more important than the MVP, because it's the best player in the league as voted by the players. And the players don't care about what GMs and media think of them as much as people like to think that they do. Players care what other players think of them. Yeah. They care about their peers' reaction. So you had nominees Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, and Martin St. Louis, and the winner, all deserving, and the winner was Sidney Crosby. And let's be honest here, if it wasn't for his injury, he probably would have had about 4 or 5 awards this year.
Yeah.
He was, up until Carlson's injury, who was at that point probably the best player in the game, Crosby this year was without a doubt the best player in the league. He was just untouchable. He's still, to this day, at a whole other level. And
he's not the player he could have been after the concussion. I mean,
he's still
people talk about how
finding his form.
But even if he finds the form that we think is spectacular, the sad part is it won't be on the level that it could have been.
It could have been.
Because those heads, they change you. They change you immediately, whether it's by 1% or by 10%. You're a different player after that.
But Sidney Crosby at 90% is still better than most at 110.
Oh, exactly. So. I'm sure even in his 40, where he'll be a Gordie Howe type,
it'd be interesting to see how long he goes.
You can't kick me out of the league. I'm 54. I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah, Sidney, you have to go home now. I want to play!
Hitting the coach with his cane.
Yeah. You don't have a cane at 54.
Well, after taking a lot of headshots.
Well, I guess, yeah, true. Maybe a good point. Okay, Calder Trophy. We got a HAKWS snub in here. The finalists were Brendan Gallagher of the Montreal Canadiens, Jonathan Huberdeau of the Florida Panthers, Brandon Saad of the Chicago Blackhawks, and the winner was Huberdeau. Huberdeau.
All deserving as well. I think that Huberdeau got chosen because Saad and Gallagher had better rosters or better seasons with their team. However, Huberdeau's I can't argue with that. I mean, Gallagher and Huberdeau, as far as I'm concerned, were tied. In my opinion, if you ask any goaltender or defenseman who is harder to play against, the answer would probably be Gallagher time and time again.
For sure.
Based on his style, but Huberdeau was deadly and he didn't have a lot to back him up with. So that's a lot.
A lot of these awards, like the Rookie of the Year, Calder, Norris, Vezina especially, they all have elements of MVP in them, in the sense, what I mean by that is that the guys that win, a large consideration of it besides points is who was the most important to their team. That's always even though it isn't technically how it's voted on, there's always that underlying factor there. And the argument with Huberdeau is that he was Florida's pretty much best player at the age of 19 or 20 or whatever.
The other reason I would have gone with Gallagher too is because he exceeded expectations. Nobody thought.
Well, I agreed with you last show that he should win.
Yeah,
I agreed with you.
That's I think
based on the fact that he had no business being in this discussion.
Right.
But, I mean, at the end of the day,
Huberdeau was going to be.
You could argue that he had a better year overall. Yeah. Huberdeau did have a better year, so I'm not surprised with that pick. But it would have been nice to see Gallagher get it. But I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing a few awards in Gallagher's future.
That'd be awesome. I would hope so.
Pretty certain he'll develop into a very good player. James Norris Memorial Trophy for Best Defenseman. This is a big one. We got Chris Letang of the Pittsburgh Penguins nominee, PK Subban of the Montreal Canadiens nominee, Ryan Suter of the Minnesota Wild, who I thought was going to win. And
that's actually a lot of NHL fans thought that he was going to win. And PK Subban
is the winner.
Takes home the Norris.
Yeah. So well, I mean, he got
amazing. First Montreal Canadian to do it since Chris Chelios.
Very nice. 38 points in 42 games. That is insane. That is a point total. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
That's like Paul Coffey-esque point production.
And the beautiful thing is like it's a 2-year contract. Like there's a lot of drama surrounding PK Subban and his teammates in the dressing room, and I don't think it's as warranted as the fact that you just got to keep him on this roster. Do not let this defenseman go.
This is what I was wondering, thinking about the other day with that contract. Do you think that might bite them in the ass in the sense that what if he gets this insane offer after 2 years and he's just like,
they should have to match it.
Or it's an insane offer
because Montreal dug their grave by saying you have to show us what you're worth with this 2-year contract, and that's what he's doing.
And I guess he'll be restricted free agent, so it's not like he'll be a UFA, will he? I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll be an RFA.
Yeah, I think he's
still too young.
Yeah, well, in either scenario, I think Montreal will match because we don't have a big salary taken up right now. We have no young guys signed to big contracts except Carey Price.
Reason to think that Markov's not going to be making what he's making right now in a few years if he stays with the roster.
Exactly. Same with Giunta. I mean, like these contracts are coming up in 2 and 3 years, and not only that, we bought out Cabriolet.
Yeah.
We're not re-signing Ryder. That was a strategy move by Bergevin.
Yeah.
Really, like
you're not re-signing Ryder.
No. It's Ryder's agent has made it quite clear that they won't sign just because of the offers around the league. He's going to try and sign his final contract, but more specifically because it was kind of a strategy move. If you look at Cole's contract and Ryder, they're paid exactly the same, but Cole had 2 years left.
Wow.
And the cap is dropping. So Bergevin went, well, this way I don't have to do a buyout.
Yep.
So you trade Cole for Ryder. It happens to fluke out in this season that Ryder blew Cole out of the water.
And there's no guarantee he'll have that next year either.
Exactly, and that's the beautiful thing.
Well, that's kind of Ryder's
just make
MO.
peace with
He's
Ryder
so up
out.
and down.
Gallagher and Galchenyuk are going to be better. We got more rookies coming up, and we make it so that we don't have to do extra buyouts. So now we get to buy out Cabriolet, and that's awesome because Cabriolet is a 4.6 hit, by the way.
God,
So
remember like several years ago when he was so sought after in the trade market.
I know, right? And it's funny too because he's an ex-Leaf, and then Komisarek, an ex-Hab, is also going to be bought out by the Toronto Maple Leafs because he didn't turn out to be what they thought.
Highly probable, anyways.
Yeah. So that's on PK Subban. Congratulations, buddy. Go Habs.
Congratulations. Vezina Trophy, no surprise here at all. The nominees were Sergei Bobrovsky, Henrik Lundqvist, and Antti Niemi. It looks like they were all anti-Niemi this year because Bobrovsky gets it.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky wins it, and it's not at all surprising. He is the first, 2 points, first Russian to ever win the Vezina.
Oh, wow.
Also, the first player to ever win the Vezina whose team did not make the playoffs. So he's got a couple feathers in his cap right there.
Way to go. And that, I mean, is after a strong second half, really.
Get this. This is the best part of this whole thing now. Bobrovsky is so highly sought after, there is a probability he may not come back to the NHL next year. He's been offered, after taxes, a $10 million contract by the KHL for the next 8 years. And rumor is he's taking it, and he's bolted for the KHL, which means all of a sudden Columbus has this vacant goaltending position, and they were not prepared for that.
No.
I mean, keep in mind, there is still a chance they will re-sign him. I'm not
nobody in the NHL has $11 million on a $64 million cap.
They are not a cap team by any stretch based on how much money they make, but at the same time, the one thing they have going for them is they don't have much money tied up in the cap.
A sixth of your salary in one player.
That is what they would have to...
And you got to give them 8 years, apparently.
Theoretically, this is what they would have to do to match it. It's not 100%. There is a possibility Bobrovsky still will get signed, but all of a sudden, it's looking really shaky in Columbus, like he may bolt to the KHL.
All the more reason for the fans not to show up and the team to move to Quebec.
Suddenly looks a lot better for the Canucks all of a sudden, because not only is this position vacant, we'll get into this quickly before we do the
But who do you want from Columbus?
We'll get into this before the MVP. I just wanted to talk about this quickly because I didn't write
Especially because their drafts suck.
Well, I didn't write this down on paper, but this is a big story today. Speaking of vacant goaltending positions, the Philadelphia Flyers buy out Ilya Bryzgalov.
Yeah, that was kind of expected. Yeah. We didn't know when they were going to make the move, obviously, but they were not happy.
And now with Bernier gone, all of a sudden, Gillis, for not trading Luongo, looks like he might be gaining a bit of his momentum back. A lot of people criticized him for not moving Luongo a while ago.
Well, Tortorella said today that he thinks that the organization did very well handling the Luongo situation. He's a smart guy.
They did the best that they could. I mean, they just honestly weren't able to get the offer that they wanted. And at the end of the day, Luongo does have value. Even when the goaltending market was oversaturated, with Kiprusoff's imminent retirement, which he unformally announced today, but formally announced, he's pretty much retired. Miller's pretty much the only guy in the open market now. And he will obviously command a huge price. But with that said, Gillis now all of a sudden doesn't look so stupid because there's now a bunch
We'll see about that. I mean, it depends on whether... Because if nobody bites, he's still going to look like an idiot.
Well, I think what will happen is he's not probably going to get the value at the end of the day that he wants. But
hopefully it's not a Happy Bulin type scenario.
At least, though, he will be able to make a move now, it looks like, because there are a lot of teams in demand. There's heavy rumors that he is going to be going to the... I was going to say New York Islanders, but the Brooklyn Islanders.
Yeah.
There's a heavy probability Luongo might actually be headed there. And the guy coming back is Nito Niederreiter, who is a massive prospect. If the Canucks
is he Swiss?
Yes,
he's one of the. So he'll
21 years
probably
old.
End up being the best.
21 years old. Never was able to never was given a chance in the Long Island because of their amazing youth depth. They just didn't have a spot for him.
Yeah,
he's a huge offensive prospect.
Yeah, the Islanders are going to be a tough team to play.
Yeah, he's a huge offensive prospect. A bit of an attitude problem, they say. Although a guy like John Tortorella might fix that pretty quickly.
Well, and I mean at 21 or 22 years old, I mean that always irons. I mean we're just talking about Patrick Kane, and you could use Ryan Kessler as an example.
Yeah.
That stuff it gets ironed out.
It does, and I mean if the Canucks were able to land him, and the rumor is it was him, another third or fourth liner, and a pick. So if we were able to get something like that, and I think it was their first overall pick, so 15th overall first round pick.
You have to worry about the more aggressive offers coming for Schneider, though. I mean, like realistically, teams are looking for a young goalie, and if they're like, "Hey, we'll take Luongo for this."
I know there is always that.
We'll give you this if you give us Schneider.
There is always that interesting thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what if draft day, which is on Sunday? What if it's like, okay, we're giving you Jonathan Drouin for Luongo straight up?
Yeah.
Or I'm just saying, he's just Schneider straight up.
Yeah.
Gillis all of a sudden would be like, oh, crap. Because that's like a potential superstar franchise player.
Yeah.
It will not potential. He probably will be a superstar player. So, I mean, you never know. But at the same time, the goaltending landscape is all of a sudden changed because of this Bobrovsky thing, if it happens, and with Humongous Big being bought out today, Humongous Big being Bryzgalov. Yeah. Okay, finally the last trophy, because that was a major segue. The biggest one, though, and the most debated, the Hart Memorial Trophy for Most Valuable Player. Sidney Crosby nominated, Alex Ovechkin, and John Tavares, who everyone thought clear-cut winner. This guy's winning it. He carried his team into the playoffs.
Yes.
Who wins it? Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, a little bit of an odd pick.
Now, the only reason I give this to Ovechkin...
He also carried his team into the playoffs.
That's the only reason I give this to Ovechkin. I understand the reason he wins it. Yes, Tavares had a better year overall. Yeah. I mean, yes, he did more for his team.
And Tavares is a bit more of a leading role when he's in a position that's established. You got to keep going back to the fact that Ovechkin played a new system with a new coach and a new position on the ice in the right way.
And the Islanders consistently throughout the entire year were challenging for a spot. Whereas... up until a month prior to playoff time,
Washington was 13th.
They were nowhere near it. And Ovechkin all of a sudden just decides to turn it on because he has the skill level to do that and go like, okay, I'm going to score 20 goals in 12 games because I'm Ovechkin and I could do that. And he does that. And he absolutely leapfrogs his team into the playoffs. So because of that performance, although I'm disappointed Tavares didn't win it, I'm understanding that I understand why Ovechkin won it, and I'm totally fine with that pick. And I have a feeling that Tavares is probably going to get a bit more hardware in his career. I mean, he's probably going to have a decent
Well, we
career.
always say that, but Andy, there's only so many players that can win the hardware each year.
I think Tavares...
he's going to win it. He's going to win it. He's going to win it. Like, we've named about 20 players that are going to win the Maurice Richard every year.
I think Tavares is going to be in the conversation for many years. Yeah, I have a feeling. Anyways, before we go into the finals, big news out of Canucks land today.
Big official news. I mean, this has been kind of semi-confirmed since about Friday. But
John Tortorella was named the Canucks head coach today.
Yeah, so a little trade between the New York Rangers and the Vancouver Canucks.
Which would have been funny if that actually happened.
I know, and, there's a couple things I'd like to point out about this, too.
You know you can trade coaches in basketball? Sorry to segue.
Really? Well,
Doc Rivers went to the...
Is there a cap hit in basketball for your coaches?
I don't know.
Because I think there should be. I think it's ridiculous because let's say Scotty Bowman wants to come out of retirement.
$60 million.
He just makes $60 million a year, and you win 10 cups in 11 years. And it's like, no, he doesn't count at all against your cap.
Scotty Bowman is 80, remember?
Yeah, but he could still coach the shit out of a team.
He'd be like 120.
He wouldn't even have to be on the bench. You just leave him in the dressing room and he'll just sit there, come in, he'll tell you what to do, you go out, and the cup is yours.
It'd be like 50 years from now, Futurama style, head in a jar, still coaching, still winning cups. Doc Rivers got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers the other day, and I didn't even know you could trade a coach. I didn't realize that was possible in any league.
Do you know if it hits a cap?
No, it does not.
Oh, there's no cap in basketball, isn't it?
I have no idea about basketball. That's what caught me off guard.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
When he got traded, I was like, you can trade... you got traded for like a pick.
Yeah.
It's like, you can trade coaches? I didn't know you could do that.
Huh.
But anyway, I know you can't do that in hockey. But yeah, I know you are correct. Coaches in hockey do not count against the salary.
No, they totally should. That should be something that should... I mean, if it's a percentage or whatever, but just because you could pay one coach... Because that's what I heard Vigneault was making $10 million.
Yeah, he got a comparable offer from New York to what he was making here.
Because what is Eakins going to get? Not that.
No.
So it's just kind of
But Eakins is improving. It's like players, right?
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like, that's the whole thing. If it's like players, it's like players. Make it count towards a cap.
Yeah. Tortorella's proven
he's won a cup by $10 million. I don't care, but that way, Edmonton's got $9 million to play with, while New York just bought their coach.
Yeah,
right.
I gotta say, I was really the whole backstory. Which, if you've listened to previous shows, which I'm sure you have because you're all loyal, wonderful listeners. I was initially, my gut reaction was opposition in Tortorella coming here. You convinced me otherwise with a bunch of fine points.
I had a good argument, I think, and I'm happy the choice was made, but it's still, like, it has to be clear that this is likely a short-term scenario.
Well, it was a 5-year contract he got signed.
But that's, I mean, for a coach...
That doesn't mean anything, though. They can still fire him.
Exactly, and that'll probably come after...
Don't really...
But it won't have, like, three years is what I'm looking for Tortorella to actually turn the team around.
Well...
And if he does that, he will get the rest of the 5.
That's Gillis' argument, because he realizes, although their peak window is over maybe, you could theoretically, with this roster, without a complete retool, have a chance to win for 2 or 3 more years. Yes. With the roster as the way it is. Because even in their 30s...
Especially with, like, the ability to get prospects for Luongo.
Even in their 30s, the Sedins, Kessler, Bieksa, Burrows, they're all still very good players.
Yeah.
So there is that potential there to win a cup. And Tortorella is one of the best at short-term wins. Like, although he was 7 years in Tampa and 5 years in New York, so he can definitely stay a while. Tortorella is really good at getting the most out of guys in a very short period of time. Yeah. His message does wear thin, but at the same time, I was really impressed with how he handled the media today.
I was too.
He openly admitted he dug his own grave in New York. He was more aggressive with the media than he probably should have been, and it's probably something he'll change. But not fully. It's not in his character type. There's still going to be moments where he'll snap. I mean, one of the Team 1040 guys made a great point today. After a 4-game losing streak, the Tortorella we saw today may not exist.
Yeah.
So there are still fiery elements to his game that he'll bring out, but that's probably for the best.
Yeah.
But the way he handled the media today, I thought was very impressive, and I think that fiery combative nature is what this team needs right now, because they've fallen into this sort of complacent slump similar to how they were when Crawford left 7 years ago.
Did you watch the whole video today?
I watched about 20 minutes.
Did you see at all like the players in the back watching? Yeah. Kessler looked like he had a death stare on for Tortorella. Yeah. He's like, what are you going to do to
Actually, apparently Kessler is a big Tortorella fan. Just cool. Because he plays a system similar to how Tortorella coaches.
Right.
Kessler's a very Tortorella kind of player. So I think they'll get along really well just because they play they have very similar mindsets.
Have they ever played in any aspect, like all-star teams or?
He coached. He was his assistant coach at the Olympic
teams. That's
he was assistant coach at the Olympics. Okay. I mean, maybe they have. I don't know. I don't know their backstory, but I think a guy like Kessler. I could, for example, if Tortorella had the ability to, I bet you he would give the seat to Kessler. I could see that being the situation, because I think they're very like-minded. I think a lot of the Canucks players are like-minded to his approach.
I'd like to travel down that road with you. So
it won't happen.
No, but let's say no. But I mean, what are you doing with the Sedins in that scenario? Because there was the issue of taking the C away from Morrow in Dallas and how that changed the dressing room.
I don't think you'd see that happen until maybe the twilight of their careers, or if Kessler carried the team on his back to the top. I mean, realistically, this is their team, and I'm sure Kessler's
been compared to Messier not a lot. I mean, like it is a smart decision. I believe that he could be an excellent
Messier
captain.
Got the captain when Gretzky left, right?
That's true.
I mean, you never know. But I think the way Tortorella plays, he's very defensively minded, but not to sacrifice offense. He's just got a very sound defensive game. His coaching style isn't too dissimilar to Vigneault's in a lot of ways, but he's more of a detail-oriented coach, and obviously he holds his players accountable. He's fiery. I mean, that wears on some players. He calls guys out in front of other players. He's not at all player-friendly, but as a lot of people thought Vigneault was, in the dressing room, Vigneault is actually a lot like Tortorella. They're much more similar in some ways.
They actually talked for 2 weeks. They talked for 2 weeks prior to this, so there was a nice transition, kind of sharing secrets across. It'll be interesting to see the first Vancouver New York matchup next season.
Vigneault's very good at hiding how he is behind closed doors, whereas Tortorella just lays it all out on the table. I think it's going to be a great fit. I'm really excited to see what he does to the team. I love when he was asked what he was going to do with the Sedins on the penalty kill. He's like, they will play the penalty kill, and if they do that, they will be expected to block shots. They're going to be treated like every other player. And he's a very demanding coach. You sacrifice your body for the greater good, but he's had great success with that. And I don't think I can totally blame him for the lackluster play of the Rangers. I mean, a lot of the players got to be held accountable for it as well.
And they just haven't done consistently well. For the time that Tortorella was there, they've been on and off good. They've had a lot of bright spots. I mean, Lundqvist has played great. Yeah. The Rangers haven't been a bummer of a team. They just haven't succeeded as to what they should have. But, I mean, it's really the superstars that you got to point the finger at, not Tortorella.
And, I mean, the Canucks have that sort of complacent attitude right now as well, I think, especially with the last playoff exit. I just feel like a shakeup was needed, and who better to shake things up than John Tortorella. So I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking
Would you still like to see a GM change?
I would give Gillis 2 or 3 more years because
I'd give him this offseason, if that.
A GM, I mean, it's so hard a GM needs more than 2 or 3 years. It's not like a coach. I would give any GM I hire a 6-year window, just because it can take that long to put your stamp on the team. It's not like you just do it overnight. I mean, unless you're Shero and you're
but I mean, like when you see some of the moves and stamps start to form, maybe if you're not happy with them.
Okay, well, I'll put it this way. Maybe if we miss the playoffs this year, maybe potentially Gillis is in trouble. But I think if the team has some playoff success this year and some playoff success next year, I could see him sticking around for a couple more years.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of moves he makes in the offseason. We'll see specifically what happens with Luongo.
If he could pull out a Luongo...
If he get ripped off for Luongo, he's gone.
But I mean, if he could pull out a thing like a Niederreiter in a first,
he'll
Luongo
stick
in a first,
around.
I mean, so you never know, right? It'll be really interesting to see what he does with the team, because he was really riding on Burke's thing. Like, Burke built the team and he sort of inherited it, which is sort of Burke's style, it seems. So Gillis really sort of inherited this roster, which he wasn't forced to ever make any drastic moves because they were always winning. So it's like, why change something when you win President's trophies and you have that success, right?
Yeah.
So he was never really, this is the first year since he's been here in his 3 or 4 years that he's really had criticism. He's always been like, everyone's like, oh, Gillis is amazing, he's wonderful, just because he hasn't had to do anything yet, really. You know, like, it's just the team's been great, even without the cup win.
Well, I mean, I don't know. But now I haven't felt that way. I mean, like, as soon as that Grabner trade went down and like stuff like that.
Well, he's made boneheaded moves, but I mean, at the end of the day, though, as long as the team was winning, all I'm saying is like the team was still winning. So he had that was backing him up, even with the trades which were questionable. I agree, he made some moves I didn't like either, but I mean, some of the moves were great, like HAKWS, Lapierre, Higgins. Like he got some good moves in there as well. So I'd say for every one bad move, he had an equally good one. So I give the guy a year or two more, unless we absolutely bomb next year, then my tune might change. But I think the Tortorella move was smart, and I just hope that the long-term Tortorella move is also smart, because I might not be saying the same thing 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very exciting. Exciting time for Canucks fans and for hockey fans in general with the draft coming up. So, pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Kind of big deal. I got to tell you a story. I watched, obviously, the entire series. Last night's game, it was 2-1 with a minute and a half to go. I'm thinking in my head, yeah, this is going to Game 7. It's going to Game 7. It's happening. I made peace with it. So I was like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to get up quickly, use the washroom against my better judgment. I was like, I'll just do it. Use the washroom. Go, powder my nose and whatever I do in there. So I'm in the bathroom, and what do I hear? 2 freaking goals scored in 17 seconds.
You didn't even hear them, did you? You just came back and looked at the TV?
I heard commotion. I heard commotion.
Could have been a hit. Could have been a save.
And I was thinking in my head, oh God, please, I hope they didn't score. Because I want to be there to witness that moment, the moment there. And they scored 2 goals in 17 seconds, and they win the Stanley Cup. That is unbelievable.
And I feel so bad for Andy, because the entire time, I mean, if you were next door to my apartment, you would have thought that the Montreal Canadiens had won the Stanley Cup. I mean, I have never seen anything like that in, maybe in a regular season game.
Not in a Stanley Cup final.
Never in a Stanley Cup final. Never when the Stanley Cup is in the building, and that's how you win it. You'll never see anything like that again, ever. Wow.
Bruins fans must have just been beside themselves.
Oh my God.
How would you be... I gotta say this, though. As incredible as that was, I will hand it to Boston. Those fans were so classy. They stayed around at the end.
Massive ovation.
They cheered on their players. They cheered on the Hawks. They cheered on the Conn Smythe winner, Kane. They booed Gary Bettman. Which is excellent. I read a great quote on Reddit today. It's like, what do we do now, folks? Simple. We must boo the Bettman. It's a Batman reference, but never mind. Okay, that fell flat. But I thought it was funny when I read it. It's simple. We must boo the Bettman. And they did that. They booed him. And that's awesome, because you're supposed to do that. Because Bettman's a tool.
It's a shame that because of Bettman, there are boos raining down upon the Stanley Cup. But it's his fault.
Yep, because he sucks.
Yep.
They should just have Gretzky handed out every year.
Yeah, right? Like, why is Bettman giving it out? Why does he get that? He doesn't even care about the hockey.
He was interviewed about it before, and he was obviously paraphrasing, but he was like, because I'm the commissioner and I get to do that. It's my thing. You can't do it. Only I can do it. Because I'm the commissioner.
Watch the next commissioner just be like, the best. He's just like, let's get different legend to hand it out every year.
He's like the dude from The Big Lebowski. He's like, he is the dude.
What about, what's his name? That super, super rich guy who keeps buying NBA teams in the States. He's got the Mavericks or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Or that guy seems like he'd just be awesome.
Richard Branson, maybe. Or the Queen of England, she can hand it out.
Yeah, there you go.
She has to lift it, though.
Yeah, she has to kiss above her head.
She's got these
give it a kiss.
Massive biceps. That'd be terrifying. So I gotta say, that was one hell of a series. I'm not even making this up. I think that was probably the best Stanley Cup final I've seen in maybe 6 years.
Are you referring to the game specifically, or all 6 of them?
Well, the series in general.
It was insane.
Probably the best series I've seen in 5 or 6 years, and I'm including the Vancouver-Boston series in that, which was also terrific. It was one of the best series I've seen in probably half a decade. It was superb. An absolute barn burner of a series. Every game was great. Both teams were so evenly matched. I mean, Boston could have easily won it.
They were up 2-1.
I will say this, though. I had a feeling that if it was to go to Game 7, I think Chicago would have still won it in 7.
You changed your mind, though, because we both said Boston in 7.
We both picked Boston in 7. Yeah. I know. Well, because going into the series, I just felt like, based on how they demolished Pittsburgh, I thought if Pittsburgh couldn't do it, how could Chicago? Because they're so similar.
And gambling people who lost... you put your money where the smart money was. I mean, Boston looked massive going in. Chicago had just come back 3-1 against Detroit, so they were a bit beat up. I mean, pumped, but beat up. And everybody expected that Chicago was not going to be able to keep up with that physical play, and it looked bleak after 3 games.
But they kept up with it.
They kept up with it. They came out huge in Game 4 despite a suspension. They were absolutely massive on home ice, not ever losing 2 in a row in the postseason on home ice, and that was huge for Game 4 victory. And then, Game 5 victory, and then back to Boston, Game 6, and pulled it out with a minute to go, and that's just brilliant. That's how you win.
I'm so happy the tying goal was Bickles, too, because he's probably been one of the biggest surprises all playoffs.
And this is right there where you're talking, sorry to interrupt, but that's why I would have called Taves for Conn Smythe.
You thought Taves should have won?
I thought Taves should have won. I thought that...
I would have given it to Crawford.
Crawford and Taves were tied in my mind. I was a little bit surprised to see Patrick Kane lift it.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have probably been my third pick just because like the great goal scoring that he had in clutch times. But Jonathan Taves never gave up through all 4 rounds. He was firing the puck at the net relentlessly. I remember he was the shot leader at one point, even though he had no goals. Like that,
to come back from that Boychuk hit was
come back from the Boychuk hit. I mean, that's just in the Boston series. But every round he did something. He pumped up his team to come back against Detroit. I mean, that was all him. Yeah. He was skating in every game after they were down 3-1. Yeah. And in Boston, in the last, so he pinches against Chara, which I already talked about, and goes ahead and scores the tying goal 1-1. The pass to Bickle. Oh my God, it was through the Boston defender's legs just onto a tee for Bickle. Yeah. Rask had no hope.
Yeah.
That just
Bickle really took advantage of playing with Kane and Taves this playoffs.
And the turning point in that series really was that line being reunited.
Yeah.
Kane and Taves need to be playing with each other. They have a chemistry they're like kids playing in the cul-de-sac street hockey.
It's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. There's so much creativity and passion going on.
And trust. I mean, they can do no-look passes.
It looks like they're having
day.
Even as serious as Taves is, it looks like when they play together, they have a lot of fun, which at the end of the day, that's what the game is about. Yeah. And that's what makes people like it. Yeah. Because they like to see these guys have
8 members of that team lifting their second Stanley Cup in 4 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent. Done it with 2 different goalies. That's even more impressive.
Yep.
Quenneville's got to be stoked. Scotty Bowman wins his 14th Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. I mean, like I already said, Crawford, what was I saying? I'm sad a Montreal goalie couldn't win the cup, but I'm glad a Montreal goalie won the cup.
I know a lot of people are saying Crawford's in talk for Sochi, just how amazing he played.
We'll have to see. I mean,
even with his glaring glove hand, which he has to work on, obviously.
We got half a season to see Ward, Luongo, Crawford, and Price put up their numbers to be the 3 selected. Yep. Price is on the hot seat. He was talked about being number 1 up until Luongo got hot. So he's really the one it's his position to lose for Sochi.
I agree. I'll be really interested to see what happens with Bickle because he's UFA. And man, you couldn't have picked a better time to be one.
It's a Byfuglien scenario. It's a Dustin Byfuglien scenario. He's probably gone just because they got to hold down that core. And that's okay because if every 3 or 4 years you can pull out a player that fills that role and you keep those guys. And what about Hossa too, eh? Like, can't pick the right team and then just is like, I'm going to stick with the Blackhawks and get.
And he was like non-existent in the last round.
He was trying.
Apparently, he was playing with like something like 3 different injuries at the exact same time.
He's an older guy too.
For all intents and purposes, he should not have been playing. He had a multitude of injuries, and you could tell he was not his normally dominant self. He was a shadow of his former self. And I feel bad for Yager.
And I think
like bad for Yager. I would have loved to see him get one.
That is the only dark spot for me as Boston loses. I mean, let me rephrase that. There's no dark spots. It would have been the only good thing I was looking at if Boston had won the cup.
The only
Jaromir Jagr would have been cool. Jaromir Jagr would have been cool to see him lift another Stanley Cup, but he's not done yet. And ideally, he'll be smart and not sign with the Bees.
Did you see the CBC thing where there was a couple of players being interviewed? Krejci was like, "Who was your favorite player growing up?" He's like, "Oh, it was Jaromir Jagr. He was my favorite player." And then they interview Jagr. He's like, "Who was your favorite player growing up?" It's like, "Oh, it was Jaromir Jagr." It was awesome.
That's fantastic.
It was awesome. That's the thing with Boston. Their top line, which was probably the best line in the playoffs all year, up until the last round, were almost like they didn't show up. Lucic had a couple of amazing moments.
Yes.
Lucic played great, and I once again, I gotta say, people think I don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I said Lucic is a playoff guy. He didn't have a great year, but he will show up in the playoffs and play when it counts. One of the best players all playoffs for all of the teams included. He had an amazing playoffs.
That's part of the reason the Los Angeles Kings were in the position they were in. They didn't get a great spot because so much of their roster were playoff performers.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Lucic that you're saying now. I mean, like that is a great argument when it comes to your team making the playoffs.
Yeah.
What happens
when your team doesn't make the playoffs?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not trying to write the guy off saying he doesn't have to try in the season, but I'm just saying he did what I said. He showed up in the playoffs, and that although that line wasn't particularly effective against Chicago, he was terrific.
And let's be honest, I'll just look at any chance I have to pick at the Bees.
Yeah, fair enough. As much as I hate Boston as a Canucks fan, I just have a soft spot for Lucic just because he was a Vancouver Giant, and he's a local boy.
Well, and you got to feel how I felt because honestly, you wouldn't want Chicago or Boston in the final.
No,
and that's the year I was like, I don't want Boston or Vancouver in the final.
I was cheering for Chicago. Oh, my hatred of Chicago is
fading.
Well, it's been a few years since we've really butted heads
with
them.
Urge to kill, fading.
Rising.
Yeah,
it's been a few years since we've really competed with them in that way, so although I'm sure there will come a time when I will hate them again as a Canucks fan.
Yeah, it's probably next year in the Western Conference or in the Western Conference Finals.
If we get there, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, it's
Tortorella versus Quenneville.
Oh yes,
man.
yeah.
That's a coaching matchup.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'm really looking forward to with Tortorella. Totally going off base here. Is Vigneault would always get out coached and would never adjust. Is like an amazing adjuster.
Strategist.
Like he is a chess master. Yeah. He's a great coach. Like when he goes up against a guy like Quenneville, there's no panic in his game at all. Whereas when Vigneault was going up against like Julian, for example, you could tell he was sweating bullets a bit. Julian kind of had him beat there, mind game wise. Yeah. Tortorella is vice versa.
Quenneville's a very silent ninja type coach. Like
he looks terrifying though. He's like Babcock.
But it's like a stare. Yeah, Babcock. Exactly. It's like a stare down terrifying.
Yeah, he looks like he's 1 second away from snapping and twisting one of his players.
Exactly. He could like move his head drastically, and you'd be like, oh god.
He's like one of those silent movie villains.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. No, it was
a little different from Julian's style, who's more like a Bruin. Just throws it all on the ice.
Julian,
sometimes water bottles.
Well, remember Julian. People often forget this, but he did play Bill in King of the Hill. He was King of the Hill. Julian was a cartoon character.
Bill Dauterive.
Yeah, that was Julian, man. I swear to God, that's who he was modeled after. That was I gotta say that was one hell of a series, and it was a great way to end the season. I mean, it was awesome for the NHL considering the lockout and everything, and they pretty much get two of the biggest franchises in the league to go head to head.
Yeah,
I think they said they broke every single. NBC, I should say, said they broke every single NHL record this year in the playoffs. Like, they're just the best numbers they've had in years. There's rumors that ESPN might even get involved again next year, which would be huge for the league because ESPN pretty much controls American sports.
I mean, it's a shame because, like, realistically, the ratings are great because it was two of the biggest hockey American cities, and we really want Canadian teams in the final. Obviously, I mean, we had an opportunity for that this year with 5 teams making it. Yeah. But realistically, that's probably actually a bad thing for hockey because if you had like Montreal, Calgary in the Stanley Cup, Montreal's a pretty popular team North America wide. So let's say Ottawa, Calgary in the Stanley Cup final. Not a single American is going to watch that shit. Well, I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous.
They're saying the Flames might not play next year because it's going to take a long time to empty out the Saddle Dome with only one cup.
Yeah! Oh, I'm so mad. I wanted to say that one. You suck. I'm going to steal it from you. I can't remember who it was, but you stole that off Twitter. I'm pretty sure it was Peros.
I totally did.
I don't know. I was saying that.
I can't put it in print because the Canucks have never won anything. So like I could never say it in writing because it's just like, well, you haven't won anything. You're a Canucks fan. So it's like, yeah, I know. What do I got? I got nothing. Yeah. It just made me laugh when I read that though. Yeah. That was a great little line.
Yeah, I love that. That was and he openly was like, this is probably not like the greatest time, but like
it is inappropriate and it's obviously your heart goes out to Calgary with what they've been through.
And good for the city of Calgary. They are putting on the Calgary Stampede. Yep. Way to go. Yep. Keep it going. Get it back. And hopefully Carey Price makes another appearance and rides a bull.
The way they turned that around, the city of Calgary should be commended. I mean, they really... that level of crisis, which I don't think they've ever experienced. At least I don't recall ever seeing them experience something like this.
And an opportunity to replace the Saddle Dome, or at least spiffy it up.
Yeah, exactly. Change some. They said they lost like millions of dollars worth of gear from that flood. So there's like a picture of one of the mascots' heads floating in the pool, like this ominous looking.
Well, we'll see how much money they save after they fire Jay Feaster.
Now all they need is an NHL team, and they'll be off to the races,
or at least a GM who understands what the NHL is and abides by its rules.
Yeah, exactly. Wait. He goes back into UFA if we sign him? Yeah, that was a...
Wait. I need 3 people on a line?
Yeah, okay. Well, enough joking with Calgary aside because they've been through a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it for us, man. We got a couple more shows. We're going to do a show on Tuesday summarizing the trade, the draft day, which is also a big trade day. So lots to talk about next show for the draft and a bunch of trades that will surely happen. Yep. And then I guess the last show will be the Tuesday following July 5th, Free Agent Frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, we might even combine the two. We'll see what happens. Yep. But I guess I'll announce this now. I'm leaving Vancouver to go to another city, but we're going to do our best to figure out how to get this thing going from about 1,200 mile distance, and we'll get the show coming back to you maybe a couple times during the off season if there's some moves, but hopefully by the time puck drops
realistically
after training camp,
realistically the July 5th Free Agent Frenzy. So you got pretty much July 9th probably will be the last show, and then a couple months off. Not much to talk about in the off season, and we'll be back with you guys in September when training camp opens.
Yeah.
So that's been one hell of a show. I hope you guys enjoyed the Stanley Cup playoffs as much as we did. It was an amazing season with the lockout and all to have the NHL bounce back and have probably one of the best Stanley Cup Finals in NHL history. So we hope you guys enjoyed it as much as us. And it's been a lot of fun. My name's Andy Cole.
And my name's Justin Boniface. Thanks for listening.
Have a good night.